The notification popped up on my phone while I was replacing the brake pads on my truck. Grease covered my hands, and I almost ignored it. Should have trusted that instinct. Nina's face filled the screen, all glossy lips and perfect makeup. "You owe me a date, sweetheart," she purred into the camera, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Then the camera panned, and there was my wife Lyra, sitting right beside her sister, laughing like they'd just shared the world's funniest joke. I stared at that screen for a full minute, engine oil dripping from my fingers onto the concrete floor of our garage. 22 years of marriage, and this was how it ended? With a video from my sister-in-law calling me sweetheart while my wife giggled in the background? My name is Keaton Marin. I run a small security consulting firm here in Millfield, Maine, a town where everyone knows everyone else's business, usually before they know it themselves. I install alarm systems, do background checks for local businesses, and occasionally help track down cheating spouses. The irony wasn't lost on me. I wiped my hands on a shop rag and typed back, "What time should I pick you up tonight?" The response came faster than I expected. Nina again, this time with Lyra leaning into frame. 8 o'clock, Riverside Hotel. Don't keep us waiting. That's when the pieces clicked into place. The late nights Lyra had been working, the sudden interest in expensive clothes and jewelry, the way she'd started talking about her law practice like it was some glamorous television show instead of the small-town firm it actually was. I walked into the house and opened my laptop. The folder labeled Important Documents contained everything I needed, the deed to our house, mortgage statements, utility bills, all in my name, all mine. The printer hummed as I made copies of everything. Then I walked upstairs to our bedroom and started packing Lyra's clothes into boxes. I wasn't angry, not yet. That would come later. Right now, I was methodical, efficient, the way I approached every job. Her jewelry went into a separate bag. I took photos of everything with my phone, time-stamped and dated. Evidence. In my line of work, you learn to document everything. The locksmith arrived within an hour. Professional courtesy. I'd referred plenty of business his way over the years. He changed all the locks and handed me the receipt. "Everything okay, Keaton?" "Just fine, Dave. Thanks for coming out so late." After he left, I forwarded Nina's video to Lyra's parents, along with a brief message. "Won't be making it to family dinners anymore. Hope you understand." Then I sat in my kitchen and waited. Lyra showed up at 9:30, alone. She knocked on the front door, her own front door, like a stranger. "Keaton? What's going on? The key doesn't work." I slid the printed screenshots of the video under the door, along with copies of the deed and mortgage papers. "Your things are packed. You can pick them up tomorrow. Bring Nina." "Keaton, please. We need to talk about this." "Nothing to talk about. You made your choice." Her phone started buzzing. Probably Nina, wondering how the confrontation was going. I blocked both their numbers and opened my laptop to book a weekend trip, somewhere far from Millfield, where I could think clearly about what came next. Before I closed the laptop, I sent one final message to Nina. "You wanted to play games. I just decided who gets the last laugh." The Millfield diner was buzzing with gossip by Tuesday morning. In a town of 12,000 people, a story like mine spread faster than butter on hot toast. I sat in my usual booth, drinking coffee and listening to the whispered conversations around me. "Did you hear about Keaton Marin? That lawyer wife of his? Always thought she was too fancy for this town." Mrs. Henderson from the hardware store leaned over the back of her booth. "Keaton, honey, you doing all right?" "Just fine, Mrs. Henderson. Thanks for asking." She patted my shoulder with the kind of sympathy reserved for widowers and lottery losers. "You let me know if you need anything." My phone had been ringing all morning. Lyra, Nina, even Lyra's law partner, Cade Hatcher. I let them all go to voicemail. The messages were predictable, explanations, justifications, demands that I be reasonable about the situation. The only call I answered came from my daughter Grace, home from college for spring break. Dad, what the hell is going on? Mom's staying at Aunt Nina's, crying her eyes out. Your mother made some choices, Grace. Now she's dealing with the consequences. She said you threw her out over a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. She can explain the video to you herself. Grace's voice got that sharp edge she'd inherited from her mother. What video? I forwarded it to her and hung up. Let Lyra explain that one. My office sat above Murphy's bar on Main Street, a 2-room setup with a view of the town square and enough space for my desk, filing cabinets, and a small safe. The morning brought 3 new clients, all wanting background checks on cheating spouses. Word travels fast in small towns, and apparently my personal situation had become free advertising. Figure if you can catch your own wife, you can catch mine, said Tom Bradley, sliding a check across my desk. I took the case. Business was business, and I had a feeling I'd need the money. Around noon, Cade Hatcher walked into my office without knocking. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, polished, wearing a suit that cost more than most people's cars. He'd been Lyra's law partner for 3 years, and I'd never liked him. Now I knew why. We need to talk, Marin. No, we don't. He closed the door behind him and sat down uninvited. Lyra's a wreck. This whole thing has gotten out of hand. Has it? Look, I get it. You're upset. But throwing her out, changing the locks, that's extreme. I leaned back in my chair and studied his face. Cade had the kind of confidence that came from never being punched in the mouth. I'd grown up in this town, worked construction before starting my security business, spent my 20s boxing at Frankie's gym down by the river. Cade had grown up in Boston, gone to Harvard Law, and probably never had a callus in his life. Tell me something, Cade. How long have you been sleeping with my wife? His face went pale, but he tried to bluff it out. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, text messages. I'm in the security business, remember? I notice things. He stood up, all that polished confidence cracking around the edges. You're making a mistake, Marin. The only mistake I made was trusting her, and you. After he left, I opened my laptop and started digging. 25 years in security work teaches you how to find information people want to keep hidden. By the end of the day, I had a file on Cade Hatcher that would make his mother weep. Gambling debts, a previous affair with a client's wife, and something interesting about the law firm's expense accounts that didn't quite add up. My phone rang. Frankie Torino, who owned the gym where I still worked out 3 times a week. Heard you're having some trouble, Keaton. Nothing I can't handle. Come down tonight. Bring your gloves. Nothing clears the head like hitting something. Frankie's gym occupied the bottom floor of an old warehouse by the Penobscot River. The building had been a textile mill once, back when Millfield was a real town instead of just a place people drove through on their way to somewhere better. Now it housed Frankie's boxing ring, a handful of small businesses, and enough memories to fill a cemetery. I'd been coming here since high school, first to learn how to fight, later to remember who I used to be. The heavy bag hung in the corner like an old friend, scarred leather and duct tape, absorbing 30 years of frustration and rage. You hear about the video? I asked Frankie while I wrapped my hands. Whole town's heard about the video. Nina posted it on her Instagram. Girl's got no sense. That stopped me cold. She posted it? Oh yeah. Made it sound like some kind of joke. Her followers are eating it up. I hit the heavy bag harder than I'd intended. The chain rattled against the ceiling mount. Easy, Keaton. Save some anger for later. You're gonna need it. Nina's Instagram account had 47,000 followers, mostly young women who bought whatever she was selling. Clothes, makeup, lifestyle advice from someone who'd never worked a real job in her life. The video was there, posted with the caption, "When your boring brother-in-law finally gets a sense of humor." The comments were exactly what you'd expect. Lots of laughing emojis, Lots of people who didn't understand they were watching a marriage implode in real time. I screenshot everything and saved it to my growing file. Then I made a few phone calls. The first was to Grace's college newspaper. My daughter was majoring in journalism, and her editor owed me a favor. I'd helped track down the person who'd been stealing laptops from the dorms last semester. "Mr. Marin, this is Jake Morrison from the Beacon. Grace said you had a story for us?" Not exactly a story, more like a public service announcement. The second call went to Channel 8 News in Bangor. The weekend anchor was a woman named Carol Pritchard, whose husband had hired me 2 years ago to investigate some suspicious charges on their credit card. Turned out he was the one making them, buying gifts for his secretary. Carol had divorced him and kept my business card. "Keaton, what can I do for you? Remember when you said if I ever had a story worth telling, you'd be interested?" "I remember. Well, I've got a story." The third call was the most important. Lyra's boss, senior partner at Morrison, Hatcher and Associates. Richard Morrison was old-school Maine, granite hard, honest as a summer day, and absolutely intolerant of anything that might damage his firm's reputation. "Mr. Morrison, this is Keaton Marin. I think we need to talk." By Thursday morning, the story had legs. Grace's college paper ran a piece about social media and family privacy. Channel 8 did a segment on cyberbullying and public shaming, and Richard Morrison called an emergency partners meeting to discuss recent developments that might reflect poorly on the firm. I knew all this because Millfield was a small town, and in small towns, secrets were harder to keep than goldfish. Lyra called me Thursday afternoon, her voice shaking with anger. "What did you tell Richard Morrison?" "The truth. Cade's been suspended pending investigation. The whole firm's in chaos." "Sounds like a them problem." "This is insane, Keaton. You're destroying people's lives over a stupid video." "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just making sure everyone sees what I see." She hung up on me. 5 minutes later, Nina called. "You bastard. Do you know what you've done to my brand?" "Your brand?" "I've lost 3 sponsorship deals. My follower count is dropping." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you posted the video." "It was a joke." "I'm not laughing." Friday brought the first real confrontation. I was leaving Murphy's bar after a late dinner when Cade stepped out of the shadows between 2 parked cars. He'd been drinking. I could smell the whiskey from 10 feet away. "You think you're pretty smart, don't you, Marin?" "Smart enough." "You have no idea who you're messing with." He took a step closer, and I could see the rage in his eyes. All that polished confidence was gone, replaced by something raw and desperate. "I know exactly who I'm messing with. A gambling addict who's been skimming from his own law firm to pay off bookies in Boston." That stopped him cold. "How did you—" "I'm good at my job, Cade. Real good." He swung at me then, a wild, drunken haymaker that I saw coming from next Tuesday. I stepped aside and let his momentum carry him past me into the brick wall of Murphy's bar. He bounced off and went down hard, scraping his palms on the asphalt. "Stay down," I told him. "This doesn't have to get worse." But he was already getting up, fumbling for his phone. "I'm calling the police. Assault." "Go ahead. I'm sure they'd love to hear about those gambling debts and the missing client funds." He stopped dialing. "Smart choice," I said, and walked away. But I knew this was just the beginning. Cade wasn't the type to back down, and Nina was too invested in her public image to let this slide. And Lyra? Lyra was just getting started. Saturday morning brought the first real surprise. Grace showed up at my door with 2 suitcases and a face like a thundercloud. "I'm staying here for the rest of spring break." "Your mother know about this?" "I don't care what she knows. I saw the video, Dad. The real one. Not the edited version Nina posted." I let her in and made coffee while she settled into her old room. When I came back downstairs, she was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open. "You've been busy," she said, scrolling through my research files. Just doing my job. This isn't your job, Dad. This is war. She wasn't wrong. What had started as a simple response to betrayal had escalated into something bigger, something that was about to consume everyone involved. Grace, maybe you should stay with a friend for a while. This is going to get messy. She closed the laptop and looked at me with eyes that reminded me of her mother, before her mother became someone I didn't recognize. I'm not going anywhere, Dad. Someone needs to watch your back. Why? Because Nina's planning something, and whatever it is, it's going to be bad. Grace was right about Nina planning something. The first sign came Sunday morning when I found my truck's tires slashed in the driveway, all 4 of them cut clean through with something sharp. Professional work. I called the police, more for the report than any hope they'd catch whoever did it. Officer Danny Reeves showed up 20 minutes later, notepad in hand and sympathy in his eyes. Any idea who might have done this, Keaton? Could be anyone. I've made some enemies lately. Danny had gone to high school with me and Lyra. He knew the whole story without me having to explain it. Insurance'll cover it? Most of it. Want me to dust for prints? Don't bother. Whoever did this was smart enough to wear gloves. After Danny left, I called AAA and arranged for a tow to Millfield Tire. Then I called Frankie. Need a ride? On my way. Frankie showed up in his ancient Chevy pickup, country music blasting from speakers that had seen better decades. He was 65 years old, built like a fire hydrant, and had been my closest friend since I was 17 years old. Heard about your tires, he said as I climbed into the passenger seat. News travels fast. Faster when it's interesting. You think it was Nina? Nina doesn't get her hands dirty, but she knows people who do. We drove through downtown Millfield, past the empty storefronts and struggling businesses that marked it as another fading Maine town. The paper mill had closed 5 years ago, taking 800 jobs with it. Now the place survived on tourism, social security checks, and the kind of quiet desperation that pushed people into bad decisions. You know this isn't going to end with slashed tires, Frankie said. I know. So what's your plan? Keep pushing until something breaks. What if what breaks is you? I didn't have an answer for that. Monday brought a new development. Richard Morrison called me directly, his voice tight with controlled anger. Mr. Marin, I need to see you, today. Morrison, Hatcher and Associates occupied a restored Victorian mansion on Elm Street, all dark wood and brass fixtures designed to impress clients with the firm's stability and tradition. I'd been there exactly twice in 22 years of marriage. Once for the Christmas party, once for Lyra's promotion celebration. Richard Morrison's office was on the 2nd floor, overlooking the town square. He was 73 years old, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, with the kind of presence that made witnesses tell the truth and opposing lawyers reconsider their strategies. Sit down, Keaton. We need to talk. I sat in the leather chair across from his massive oak desk and waited. I've known your wife for 8 years. She's a good lawyer, dedicated, professional. But this situation with Cade Hatcher has put me in an impossible position. How so? The gambling debts you mentioned. The irregularities in the expense accounts. I've had our accountant review everything. There are problems. What kind of problems? The kind that could destroy this firm if they become public. The kind that could send people to prison. He leaned back in his chair and studied my face. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want an honest answer. What do you want from all this? I want my life back. That's not possible. Too much has happened. Too many people know too much. Then what are you suggesting? A deal. Cade resigns quietly. Lyra transfers to our Portland office. You keep what you know about the financial irregularities to yourself. In return, you get a very generous divorce settlement, and everyone walks away with their reputation intact. And if I say no? then this turns into a public scandal that destroys everyone involved, including your daughter. I thought about that for a moment. It was a reasonable offer. Clean, professional, the smart thing to do. I'll think about it, I said. Don't think too long. This offer expires Friday. Tuesday morning brought another surprise. Nina showed up at my office, dressed in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She looked nervous, which was unusual for someone who made a living performing for cameras. We need to talk, Keaton. No, we don't. Please, 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat in the same chair Cade had occupied, but where he'd been arrogant and threatening, she seemed almost fragile. I want to apologize, she said. For what? For the video, for posting it online. I didn't think. You never think, Nina. That's your problem. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I know you hate me. I know you think I'm just some spoiled princess who doesn't understand real life. And maybe you're right. But Lyra is my sister. She's the only family I have left. She made her choice. She made a mistake. People make mistakes, Keaton. Even you. What's that supposed to mean? Nina reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. She tapped the screen a few times, then turned it toward me. The video showed me and Cade outside Murphy's bar Friday night. But it had been edited cleverly, making it look like I'd attacked him without provocation. The audio was gone, replaced by Nina's voiceover explaining how her poor brother-in-law had snapped under pressure. Where did you get this? Security camera across the street. The owner's a friend of mine. What do you want? I want you to back off. Stop investigating Cade. Stop talking to reporters. Let this whole thing fade away. And if I don't? This video goes viral, along with some other interesting footage I've collected over the past few days. She showed me more clips. Me following Cade to his apartment building. Me taking pictures of his car. Me sitting outside the law firm with a telephoto lens. You've been busy, I said. So have you. The difference is, I have the better story. Obsessed ex-husband stalks wife's lover. Threatens violence. Destroys innocent people's lives. I handed her phone back. Get out of my office. Think about it, Keaton. You can end this now, with everyone walking away bruised but breathing. Or you can keep pushing and watch it all burn down. After she left, I sat in my chair and stared out the window at the town square. A few tourists wandered between the antique shops and art galleries, taking pictures of the quaint New England architecture. They had no idea they were documenting a place that was slowly declining, one closed business and broken family at a time. My phone rang. Grace. Dad, we have a problem. What kind of problem? Mom's here, at the house. She has a locksmith with her. I changed the locks. She's claiming it's still her legal residence. She has paperwork. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. I'm on my way. But I already knew this was part of Nina's plan. The video was just the opening move. Now came the real game. Lyra's BMW sat in my driveway like an accusation. Behind it was a white van with Millfield lock and key painted on the side. Through the front window, I could see Grace standing in the living room, arms crossed, facing off against her mother and a man in coveralls. I parked Frankie's truck on the street and walked up the front steps. The locksmith was already working on the door, his drill whining against the metal. Stop, I said. He looked up, confused. Sir? I said stop. This is my house. Lyra appeared in the doorway, looking more composed than she had any right to. It's our house, Keaton, marital property. I have every legal right to be here. Not anymore. She held up a folder thick with legal documents. Temporary restraining order, filed this morning. You're not allowed to exclude me from the marital residence pending divorce proceedings. I took the folder and scanned the papers. Everything looked legitimate. Judge Martha Henley's signature at the bottom, Official court seal, all the legal language that made it binding. When did you file this? Yesterday, after you refused to answer my calls. And Judge Henley signed it without hearing my side? She didn't need to. The evidence was compelling. What evidence? Lyra's smile was cold as January. Nina's video, the one showing you attacking Cade, plus witness statements about your erratic behavior, your obsessive surveillance, your threats against my law firm. The locksmith finished his work and handed Lyra a new set of keys. All set, ma'am. That'll be $200. She paid him cash, and he left, probably grateful to escape the domestic drama. Grace came out to stand beside me, her face flushed with anger. This is ridiculous, Mom. You can't just... I can, and I did. This is still my home, Grace, our home. Not anymore, I said. Actually, yes. Until the divorce is finalized, I have equal rights to this property. The restraining order makes that very clear. I read through the papers more carefully. She was right. The order gave her full access to the house and prohibited me from interfering with her peaceful enjoyment of the marital residence. There's more, Lyra said, pulling another document from the folder. Temporary spousal support. $1,500 a month, starting immediately. You've got to be kidding. I have no income thanks to your little campaign of harassment. Richard Morrison put me on unpaid leave pending resolution of this situation. I need money to live. Grace stepped between us. Mom, this is crazy. Dad didn't do anything wrong. Your father has been stalking and threatening people, Grace. He attacked Cade. He's been spreading lies about my relationship with... Your relationship? Grace's voice rose an octave. You mean your affair? It's not an affair. Your father and I have been separated for months. Since when? Since he became obsessed with his conspiracy theories and started acting like a crazy person. I felt something snap inside my chest. Not anger, something colder and more dangerous. Grace, I said quietly, go pack a bag, you're coming with me. Dad! Now. She must have heard something in my voice because she went inside without arguing. Lyra watched her go, then turned back to me. You can't take her. She's 18. She can go wherever she wants. This is her home. This was her home. Now it's just another crime scene. Lyra's composure cracked slightly. What's that supposed to mean? It means you picked the wrong person to play games with. Grace came back with a duffel bag and her laptop case. She kissed her mother's cheek, a gesture that somehow managed to be both loving and dismissive. I'll call you later, Mom, when you're ready to tell the truth. We drove to Frankie's apartment in silence. He lived above the gym in a converted loft that smelled like leather and old sweat. The space was spartanly furnished. A bed, a kitchenette, a television, and about 1,000 boxing magazines stacked in neat piles. You can take the couch, he told Grace. I'll sleep in the office. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Grace settled in while I called my lawyer. Patricia Wells had handled my business contracts for 10 years, but divorce law wasn't her specialty. Keaton, I have to be honest. This restraining order is solid, and the spousal support order is standard in cases like this. Cases like what? Contested divorces where one party has significantly higher income than the other. She's a lawyer. She makes more money than I do. Not anymore. According to these filings, she's unemployed due to your harassment campaign. I could hear papers rustling on her end of the line. There's something else, Keaton. They're asking for attorney's fees. $30,000. They claim you forced them into this legal action through your unreasonable behavior. 30,000? It gets worse. They want you to pay for a psychological evaluation, court-ordered, to determine if you're a danger to yourself or others. I hung up and stared at the wall. In the space of 3 days, I'd gone from wronged husband to stalker to potential mental case. And the worst part was, it was all legal. All properly filed and officially sanctioned. Grace looked up from her laptop. Dad, you okay? Just peachy. I've been doing some research on Nina's social media accounts, her financial disclosures for sponsorship deals. I think I found something interesting. She turned the laptop toward me. The screen showed a series of bank transfers, all from accounts associated with Nina's various business ventures. Look at the dates, Grace said. I looked. The transfers all occurred in the past 6 months, right around the time Lyra's affair with Cade had started. What am I looking at? Nina's been paying Cade $50,000 over 6 months. Officially, it's for legal consulting services. But look at this. She clicked to another screen showing Nina's business registrations. All of them were filed in California, where she'd lived before moving back to Maine last year. She doesn't need a Maine lawyer for California business, and definitely not $50,000 worth. So what are you saying? I'm saying Nina paid Cade to seduce Mom. This whole thing was planned. I stared at the screen, pieces clicking into place. Nina's sudden return to Maine, her constant presence in our lives, her obvious dislike of me, which I'd always attributed to simple personality conflict. But why? Grace pulled up another file. Insurance money, Dad and Mom's life insurance policies, if something happened to their marriage, if Mom got divorced and needed money. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Nina's the beneficiary, I said. Secondary beneficiary. If Mom dies or becomes incapacitated, Nina gets everything, including Mom's share of this house. My phone rang. Nina. Hello, brother-in-law. Heard you got evicted from your own home. That must sting. What do you want, Nina? I want to make you an offer, a generous offer. Walk away from all this. Take your daughter and disappear. In return, I'll make sure the divorce settlement is fair. You keep the house, your business, your dignity. And if I refuse? Then tomorrow morning, every news outlet in Maine gets a very interesting video compilation. Keaton Marin's descent into madness, the stalking, the threats, the violence. By the time I'm done, you'll be lucky if they don't commit you to a psychiatric facility. The line went quiet for a moment. You have until midnight to decide. Choose wisely. She hung up. Grace was watching me with worried eyes. What did she say? She gave me an ultimatum. Are you going to take it? I looked at my daughter, smart, brave, loyal, and realized she deserved better than watching her father get destroyed by a sociopath and her puppet sister. No, I said. I'm going to finish this. The plan came together over Chinese takeout and 3 pots of Frankie's coffee. Grace had inherited her mother's legal mind and her father's stubborn streak, which made her uniquely qualified to help destroy both Nina's scheme and Lyra's credibility. The key is the money trail, Grace explained, spreading printouts across Frankie's kitchen table. Nina's been funding this whole operation, but she's been sloppy about hiding it. How sloppy? She paid Cade through her business account, claimed it as a tax deduction, legal consulting services for her California ventures. Frankie leaned over the papers, squinting through reading glasses that made him look like a scholarly fire hydrant. So what's the play? We expose everything at once, I said. The money transfers, the fake relationship, the insurance fraud angle, all of it. How? Grace smiled, the same predatory expression her mother used when she had a witness cornered. Nina's hosting a live Instagram event tomorrow night. Setting the record straight. My sister's divorce drama. She's expecting a huge audience. So we're going to give her one, and then we're going to give them a show they'll never forget. The first step was getting inside Nina's apartment. She lived in a converted warehouse downtown, the kind of trendy loft space that looked great on social media, but was hell to heat in winter. The building had decent security, but I'd installed the system 2 years ago. I still had the master codes. Wednesday afternoon, while Nina was at her yoga class, I slipped into her building and up to the 3rd floor. Her apartment door had 2 locks, a standard deadbolt and an electronic keypad. The keypad was connected to the building's central system, which meant my master code would override it. I was inside within 30 seconds. Nina's apartment was exactly what you'd expect from someone who made a living selling her lifestyle to strangers. Everything was white and chrome and carefully arranged for maximum photogenic impact. The kitchen looked like it had never been used. The living room was set up like a television studio, with professional lighting and multiple cameras. I found her computer in the bedroom, password protected but not encrypted. 20 minutes with a USB drive and some software I'd picked up during my security training gave me access to everything. Bank records, email accounts, text message backups, and something even better, video files from her apartment's security cameras, including several very interesting conversations with Cade about their project. I copied everything to an external drive and left the apartment exactly as I'd found it. By the time Nina got back from yoga, I was sitting in Frankie's gym, working the heavy bag like it owed me money. Thursday brought the psychological evaluation. Court-ordered, non-negotiable, designed to determine whether I was a danger to myself or others. The psychologist was a thin, nervous man named Dr. Brennan, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Mr. Marin, I need to ask you some questions about your recent behavior. Fire away. Have you been experiencing thoughts of harming yourself or others? No. Have you been engaging in surveillance activities directed at your wife or her associates? I've been investigating my wife's affair. That's not surveillance. That's due diligence. Have you threatened anyone? I've made it clear that actions have consequences. If that's threatening, then every parent in America is a terrorist. The session went on for 2 hours. Dr. Brennan asked about my childhood, my marriage, my business, my relationship with Grace. He seemed particularly interested in my boxing background, as if knowing how to fight automatically made me dangerous. Mr. Marin, in your opinion, what would constitute a satisfactory resolution to this situation? The truth, all of it, public and undeniable. And then? Then everyone can make informed decisions about what happens next. Friday morning brought Nina's final ultimatum. She called while I was having breakfast at the diner, her voice bright with artificial cheer. Decision time, Keaton. Have you thought about my offer? I have. And? I decline. That's unfortunate. You're going to regret this. We'll see. Tonight's going to be quite a show. I hope you're watching. She hung up. Around me, the diner hummed with the usual morning conversation. Weather, local politics, who was sleeping with whom. Normal people living normal lives, blissfully unaware that their quiet town was about to become the center of a very public scandal. Grace was waiting for me at Frankie's gym, laptop open, cables and adapters spread across a folding table. She'd spent the morning setting up what she called the override system. Nina's planning to broadcast from her apartment starting at 8, she explained. Standard Instagram Live setup, but she's also streaming to YouTube and Facebook for maximum reach. How many viewers is she expecting? Based on her promotional posts, maybe 50,000. Could be more if it goes viral. Frankie emerged from the office carrying a cardboard box filled with old videotapes. Found the footage you wanted. Boxing matches from the 80s and 90s. Your glory days. I laughed. Glory days? I lost more fights than I won. But you never quit. That's what people remember. At 7:30, we loaded everything into Frankie's truck and drove downtown. Nina's building looked different at night, all lit up and dramatic, like a movie set. Through the third-floor windows, I could see the glow of professional lighting. Grace set up her equipment in the truck, while I connected to the building's wireless network. Nina had never changed the default password, which made accessing her system almost insultingly easy. We're in, Grace announced. I've got control of her cameras and audio feed. How long before she notices? Depends how tech-savvy she is. Could be minutes, could be never. At exactly 8 o'clock, Nina went live. She appeared on screen wearing a white dress that made her look angelic and innocent, sitting in front of a backdrop that showcased her perfect apartment. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me tonight. I know many of you have been following the drama surrounding my family, and I wanted to set the record straight. The viewer count was climbing rapidly. 15,000, 20,000, 30,000 people tuning in to watch Nina perform her version of the truth. My brother-in-law is a troubled man, she continued. The breakdown of his marriage has pushed him over the edge. He's been stalking my sister and her colleagues. He's made threats. He's become obsessed with conspiracy theories that have no basis in reality. Now, Grace whispered. She pressed a button, and Nina's feed cut to a new video, security footage from her apartment, showing her and Cade planning their project. The audio was crystal clear. The key is making it look like his idea, Nina was saying. Keaton has to believe he's discovering the affair naturally. If he suspects we're manipulating him, the whole thing falls apart. Cade's voice. And you're sure this will work? Trust me. I know my sister, and I know her husband. Push the right buttons and he'll destroy himself. The viewer count had jumped to 45,000. The comments section was exploding with confusion and outrage. Nina's voice cut back in, panicked. That's not. Someone's hacking my feed. That video is fake. Deepfake technology. Grace switched to another clip. This one showed Nina transferring money to Cade while explaining how the insurance scam would work. Once Lyra's marriage implodes and she has a nervous breakdown, she'll need someone to manage her affairs. That's where the power of attorney comes in. I'll have legal control over everything, including the life insurance policies. The comments were brutal now. 55,000 viewers watching Nina's carefully constructed image collapse in real time. Turn it off, Nina screamed at someone off camera. Turn it off now. But Grace had locked her out of her own system. The videos kept playing, hours of footage showing Nina's manipulation, her payments to Cade, her detailed plans for destroying my marriage and driving Lyra to a psychological breakdown. The final clip was the most damaging. Nina alone in her apartment, practicing her victim routine in front of the mirror. My poor sister, she rehearsed. My troubled brother-in-law. If only someone could have prevented this tragedy. The feed cut back to Nina's apartment, where she was frantically trying to disconnect her equipment. Her perfect makeup was smeared with tears, her white dress wrinkled and stained with spilled wine. This is all lies, she shouted at the camera. Keaton Marin is a dangerous man. He's hacked my system. Grace cut the feed entirely. 68,000 viewers had watched Nina's empire crumble in real time. The videos were already being downloaded, shared, reposted across every social media platform. My phone started ringing immediately. Reporters, lawyers, people I hadn't talked to in years. I ignored them all except one, Richard Morrison. Mr. Marin, I think we need to have another conversation. I think you're right. My office, tomorrow morning, and bring your lawyer. Saturday morning brought vindication. Richard Morrison's office was crowded, me and Patricia Wells on one side, Morrison and two other partners on the other. Lyra and Cade were notably absent. Mr. Marin, I owe you an apology, Morrison began. The evidence you've provided changes everything. Cade Hatcher has been terminated, effective immediately. We're also pursuing criminal charges for embezzlement and fraud. What about Lyra? Your wife appears to have been manipulated as much as anyone. However, her judgment was clearly compromised. She's agreed to resign from the firm. Patricia slid a folder across the table. The restraining order has been vacated. The spousal support order has been reversed. And given the circumstances, Mrs. Marin is prepared to agree to a very favorable divorce settlement. I opened the folder and scanned the papers. Lyra was giving up all claim to the house, the business, even her retirement account. She was keeping her car and her personal belongings, nothing more. Where is she? Psychiatric facility in Portland, voluntary admission. The stress of recent events has been significant. And Nina? Morrison's expression hardened. Ms. Varno is facing charges of fraud, conspiracy, and cyberstalking. The FBI is investigating the insurance angle. I suspect she'll be too busy with legal problems to bother you anymore. Sunday afternoon, I stood in my own kitchen for the first time in a week. Grace was making sandwiches while Frankie installed new locks on all the doors. The house felt different, smaller somehow, but also cleaner. "Dad?" Grace looked up from the counter. "What are you going to do now?" "Live my life, run my business, try to be a better father." "What about Mom?" "Your mother made her choices. Now she has to live with them." "Do you think she'll be okay?" I thought about that for a moment. Lyra was smart, educated, resilient. She'd been manipulated by her sister and seduced by a con man, but she wasn't fundamentally broken. "She'll survive. Your mother always does." My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, then decided to read it. "You think you won, but this isn't over. I have friends you don't know about, resources you can't imagine. Watch your back, Keaton." I showed the message to Grace, who rolled her eyes. "Nina's in federal custody, Dad. She's not threatening anyone." I deleted the message and put the phone away. Grace was probably right. Nina was finished, her schemes exposed, her victims free to rebuild their lives. But I kept the new locks anyway. In my business, you learn that some people never know when to quit, and sometimes the last laugh takes a while to develop.